Sorry, I got late.
So, is the screen visible? Hello.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Yeah. So like basically, if I am like kind of basically giving a mislead or like something like, then correct me, like kind of like I am also new to this terminology. So yeah, at least like I've tried. Let's see. So like basically, first of all, this paper like the auto encoding variational bias, it's a kind of a generative network in a way. So what does generative networks like does first of all? So like we have seen more of like a typical neural network. So the task of the typical neural network is like basic classification or regression. So given some data, we basically predict some label or some predictive value according to our data. But like how can we make our neural network to basically mimic the process of generating the data and basically generate data? So that's where the generative networks come into picture. So like there are a lot of generative networks apart from VAEs as well. Like I think previously there was Sigmoid and some other networks as well. Like so yeah, let's see about like how we can generate data using VAEs now. So like this is a problem scenario in terms of plate diagram. So like we assume that that's some random generating data generating process involving a latent variable z, and basically we are getting some like data x in a way. So that is this is our observed value or basically variable x in a way, and both of these parameters are dependent on theta, that is the uh, in a way we can say the distribution parameters such as the uh, mean and the variance for that distribution. Ignore this part right now, like we'll cover that later. And so in this case the samples are assumed like IID, and this can be considered like basically this data rendering part as p of x given z. In this case, like given the uh, unobserved latent variable z, basically what would be the data that I will be getting such that the model parameters are theta in this case. So here the goal is to learn the model parameter theta in this case. So now here the task in a way you can think of, we need to learn like basically the probability distribution of z condition on x given the model parameter theta in this case, like basically for this. But if we know x in this case, then basically we don't have to do all that like optimization tricks and basically searching the hypothesis space basically in order to find the model parameter theta. So here we use bias theorem to basically convert the uh, p of z given x as posterior of observed variable condition on the unobserved latent variable z times posterior of z given unobserved variable z given theta upon posterior of the observed variable x given theta. So for again this part, it's like we are basically searching the whole hypothesis space in a way, and out of which like we are basically here now. So like it is kind of in a way you can think of as, so for whole hypothesis space of x, we are searching like the hypothesis space where we have z as a underlying parameter from which x is basically being generated as a random process. So again here, if we see p of x given theta, so this is like basically in this case what I meant like searching over the whole hypothesis space in a way, like so that is integrating like this prior marginal, but this is interactable in a way, like so the calculations or computing this particular prior is difficult. So like what should we do now? So now you're like how to compute this posterior. So there are different approaches basically for solving this posterior. So first is the basic analytical integration where we get the exact precise answer, maybe, yeah. And next are the approximations that basically get us to the closer answer, like to the actual distribution or like basically the actual answer. So there is like a stochastic methods also of solving this problem. So one of this was Monte Carlo EM algorithm, which is bit slow and computationally expensive in a way. It takes more iterations like that way for larger data sets. So now here this paper focuses on the variational inference methods to achieve this. So what we'll be covering today. So now what is variational approximation in a way? So like in this case, basically we have sort of some data like observed variables x in a way, but we want to understand like what is the distribution of that data in this case. And based on understanding that distribution, we want to generate like basically this labels that resembles closer to the actual true value. So here we are approximating p of z given x condition on x given the model parameter theta to some approximate distribution q here, that is z condition x and parameter as phi. So you can think of this as like the approximation in a way. So where it is, we are trying to get closer in a way to the actual true distribution. So now this comes like the phi into picture. Like, so we are assuming an approximate distribution like in a way phi, basically from which our unobserved variable z is coming. And basically that particular distribution helps us in a way of achieving the actual true variable, observed variable x here. So here the goal is like now basically we know like what is the problem, like we want to find an approximation in a way, but like how do we achieve that particular approximation in a way? So like the answer is scale divergence in a way. So basically we find out the divergence between the two distributions. So one is the actual approximated distribution that we are assumed, and the other is the true distribution in a way. And we try to understand like how much uh, difference is between the two difference. Like, so that it can be considered as a distance measure only in a way. So here comes the variation lower bound in a way. So the KL divergence basically between the approximated distribution q phi and the posterior p theta basically can be expressed as a particular integral as the z condition on x given the distribution phi times log of z condition on x given phi upon z condition on x given theta, and we are integrating over the latent space z in a way. So here if we apply like the Bayes theorem to this particular expression z condition on x given like the theta like model parameter, we'll get this like simplification. So here we get this as the log of the prior distribution of the observed variable x given the model parameter theta plus some other term. So we basically give this term as minus L in a way. So this is like a variation lower bound, which will be clear later. So if we see in terms of the mathematical intuition or expression, so this is log prior equal to some variation lower bound plus scale divergence, like the difference between the two distribution, like q phi and the uh, p theta in a way. And KL divergence basically in a way is going to be non-negative here. So we are assuming that so since the KL divergence is non-negative here, so the log prior is going to be very low bound here, because if we tend to approximate the distribution where the KL divergence is zero, then we know the actual distribution itself like in a way. So yeah. So now, like about minimizing the scale divergence in a way. So if we look back at this particular problem, like so minimizing scale divergence in a way. So this is basically nothing but maximizing this like negative log likelihood, neg- like this is nothing but maximizing this variation lower bound in a way, so that the negative term would minimize the overall expression in a way. So minimizing KL divergence in a way it is equal to maximizing the variation lower bound L. So we know now the variation lower bound L is basically nothing but like a in a way integration over the q of z condition x given the phi times log of q of z condition x given phi upon probability of not probability but yeah, p, that is a p of x comma z given theta. over the whole latent space Z in this case. So if we try to write it, this particular expression in terms of the expectation, so we get this as uh, log of, here also we are applying Bayes theorem in a way to basically reduce the expression. So from which we obtain this sum minus some other like quantity, which is q of z condition x given the model parameter phi, distribution phi, times log of q of z given condition x given phi upon p of z given theta, like integrating over the whole latent space z in a way. So now if we try to see this particular, like the equation one, we can basically directly obtain by uh, expanding the log in a way and taking the expectation in a way. And the equation 2 is nothing but just the second term rewritten as the in terms of k divergence here. So like this is like in a way you need to find out kind of what is the expectation of log prior given like the approximating distribution phi in a way minus some k divergence between the two distributions, that is the phi and theta. Yeah, so this is nothing but like a reconstruction loss. So here we are trying to understand like so how much different the data is basically, or like in a way you can think of how different the data is, like basically in a way from the actual like the true distributed observed variable x we have, like so we are trying to quantify the reconstruction loss in a way. So in terms of like images you can think of it as like pixel differences, like squared of pixel differences, and this regularization term. So this regularization term basically helps us basically your restrict our hypothesis search space, like in a way closer to the uh, approximate distribution that we had assumed. So in that distribution, like we assume like a Gaussian distribution or some other like distribution which is tractable in a way, because we want to have an inverse CDF as well, like of that distribution. So now if we try to think of this particular variational approach in terms of autoencoders or like probabilistic encoder decoder structure in a way, so we can think of this as a encoder and decoder. So encoder part you can think of it as like a mapping of like the distribution phi in a way that we had basically we are our approximating in a way, like so it draws like the samples from a distribution like q phi in a way. So and based on that samples, like this is a neural network in a way, and like based on that sample it basically maps some like values, and basically here like the later on we basically sample some z in a way. So this is a stochastic process of like sampling like in a way. So this can be considered as a neural network only.
I think we lost your audio, or maybe that's just me.
No, I can't hear him either.
Jay, if you can hear us, we lost your audio. Maybe reconnect.
Also because I completely missed the message on Slack from someone, so I'll have to leave earlier today. I'll try to stay for as long as I can, but since until Jack comes back, is there any question? By the way, like don't worry about the derivation. I'm not sure where he took it from. That's a very convoluted way of deriving something super simple, and we can look at it if you
Sorry,
want.
dropped off.
Um,
So maybe it's good to like pause and take a couple of comments and questions.
Yeah,
Especially,
that we can do that. Yeah. If
yeah, I think you have.
quick question, Jay, where did you get that derivation from? Just trying to understand because like I think you went in full circle one time, or like the derivation went like in a circular way. Like you could have just started from, and I'll show in a bit like exactly how the derivation works. But I'm just trying to understand if like what is exactly the source that you use, because then we can point out to not use that source to anybody else.
Like this was the source, CMS slides on variation autoencoders.
Who's I can't actually read it very carefully. It's pixelated for me.
Bhiksha Raj, I think. Bhiksha Raj, Professor Bhiksha Raj.
Okay, I'll take a look at him just to make sure that it's like maybe the professor meant something else. But what happened is you went like a full circle on the same derivation. I don't know if you noticed it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I might have to leave a little bit early. Maybe I can just switch on to the Jamboard, show you the derivation, and then we can continue on. I know this derivation is something you've already seen. So, is it possible for just really quickly
Yeah,
switching on? Because I'm pretty sure that the like it's a little bit more confusing. Well, it's far less sort of derivation steps than you actually have there necessary for this particular derivation.
yeah. Jack, can you stop sharing for a bit? Akash will show us the derivation, and he's leaving, so we continue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so just very quickly, let's just go through this. Can you? I'm assuming everybody can hear and see. So, yeah, right. Everybody can see and hear, right? Okay, cool. So, the derivation is actually pretty simple, and it's exactly what we did last time, right? Like, so we wanted to estimate this. By the way, just so that the terminology is clear, we don't call this prior. So this is the data, right? Prior is on. So this is the term that this is the true data distribution. This, on the other hand, is the model distribution, and this is called as log marginal likelihood of the data under the model. We don't call it as prior, right? Just to clarify these things. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to estimate this guy, right? We want to understand what this is. And as we have seen that in our latent variable models, we have two factors, right? So we have observed X and latent Z. So what is the joint model? So the joint model is essentially just this, right? We have X Z, which is equal to P of X given Z, P of Z. So this is and usually we write down the parameter because theta has a parameter. So this is the prior, and this is the likelihood, right? So now if from this joint you want to get the marginal, you have to sum out Z, right? Which is to say that if I want P of P, so as you can see, I'm trying to get the P theta of X, which is the likelihood of the data under the model theta. This is equal to the integration of the joint with respect to Z, right? And usually we tend to work with logs. So we take the log on both sides. Right? Now, we can deal very easily with sum of log, but not log of sum. So at this point, we can't simplify it any further unless somehow we move the log inside, right? And this is where that lower bound that you've been talking about comes from, right? Because we applied the Jensen-Shannon inequality, right? Which allows us to do this. It allows us to move this log inside. So if I were to break it down, let's say like this, pz, then I can take the rest of the model, which is p theta of x given z, pz. I can do this. This is where the lower bound comes from. The lower bound comes from the application of Jensen-Shannon inequality, right? Though generally, you do one more step before you want to even go there, right? So one other thing I can do is I can take this joint, right, this intractable one, and I can multiply and divide it by q phi. Nothing has changed so far, right? I'm multiplying and dividing, so it gets canceled, right? If I write it down nicely, I can now write it down as log of the expectation under z given x of p theta x z over q phi z x pz. And so far, it's all equality. There's no inequality so far. Is there any if there's any step in this which is not clear? Well, by the way, I mean this is trivial arithmetic, so I'm assuming this is clear, right? I'm just multiplying dividing. Okay, now our goal is this: we want to move this log inside the integration. Why? Because then we can have some hope of solving the integration. If we are hit, we don't have any formulas for like otherwise dealing with it. Okay, so we just go to the next page. And this is basically the last step. We theta of x. So far we have had this. Sorry, habits. This is the equality we have. All we have done so far. Sorry, all we have done so far is we have taken our.
Akash, I
Yeah.
think we can't see page 3. Can you switch?
Oh, oh
Okay.
yeah, I'm writing on my. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So all we have done so far is this basic stuff. We started with our log of px. We wrote it down as a log of integration of the joint because that's how you get px. And then we multiply and divide by q phi. And now we just apply the Einstein inequality, right? That inequality application, like we saw earlier, allows us to move log inside the expectation. So now this thing becomes log of p theta of x z over q phi z x d z. This is where your lower bound comes from, right? And you can derive both EM type methods from here or VAE. So let's just do that very quickly. If I break the joint in this way, then I get EM, right? Because this is right down. We get right? This is log of a product. We can break it up over a sum, right? And then if you just look at this much, this guy, right? That's just negative KL divergence between the variational posterior and the true posterior. And then the remaining term is just the expectation under QZ given X of log of your actual data, right? P theta of X, right? DZ, right? So now you understand why this is a lower bound. Why? Because if this guy goes to 0, this term is independent of Z, right? So this is literally just, you see this, right? That this second term has no Z here. So this expectation is constant. So you can just remove this expectation completely because the value doesn't change because it doesn't have any dependency of Z, right? So again, this is literally just P theta of X, right? So your goal is to send this to 0. And this is where the EM comes from, right? Where you, in M step, maximize the model parameter theta, and the E step, you replace the posterior distribution with the true posterior distribution for that particular theta. Now, in what we do in VAE is we break this in different way. We break it like this. Because it's just applying the chain rule in the other direction. And now I'm not gonna do the whole derivation just to save time, right? As you can see, the KL divergence will be between the variational posterior and the prior plus the expectation under that of P theta X given Z. And this time there is a Z here. So you can't just replace with the constant expectation. Right? That makes sense. That should also tell you that both VAE and EM are optimizing the same objective. This is equal to each other. Right? But here in EM, you can get a coordinate descent type thing because you can, like for an optimal Z, so for optimal theta, you can send the KL to 0. Then you re-estimate theta, send KL 0, re-estimate. So you slowly keep moving up. And here, and you can also see why you don't want this to go to 0. Because sending it to 0 doesn't make sure that this thing is equal to the right-hand side. Which is, by the way, the right-hand side is the same for both. Both of EM and VAE are writing two different lower bounds, the same exact quantity. Sorry, both VAE and EM are the same exact lower bound, just written in a different way. They don't change, the lower bound doesn't change. How much you can push that lower bound up depends on the algorithm. So next time you're deriving this thing, just do this. Take the model, write down the joint, multiply and divide by the variational posterior of your choice, apply Einstein-Shannon, and then break the joint in either posterior and log marginal likelihood to get EM, or prior and observation model to get VAE. So this is just one-page derivation. This is the actual derivation. Okay, I'll stop here. Unless there are questions. The reason why I said you went in a full circle is because you started by matching. You started here, and you started here, but we did not know where is the variational posterior coming from. And that's why you had to go back and then look into the joint, apply Bayes rule. So usually I'm pretty sure the actual. I'll take a look at, if you can send me the slides. I'm pretty sure that the professor has done it correctly. Maybe it was a little confusing because maybe they started as some different, different in section. But where Q theta comes from, Q phi, is important, right? And in this derivation, you can see I can multiply and divide by anything, right? Whether Q depends on X or not is a total choice, right? That's why they say it's a variational posterior, because it doesn't have to be, it can be as bad as you want it to be or as good as you want it to be, right? Again, the reason it's called variational inference is because this is a function. And by writing this function in terms of another function, you're essentially getting a functional. An optimization of functionals is studied under variational calculus in physics and other places, right? So usually you optimize a function with respect to a parameter. But when you optimize a function with respect to another function, the original function is referred to as a functional, and this whole process is called variational optimization. But anyways, what I'm saying is keep this one slide in mind for any, and you can derive just about anything from it. So here's a derivation that I was doing earlier for hidden Markov model. It works the same exact way. You can write down the joint, right? And then just introduce a particular choice of variational posterior, in which here I've assumed some factorization structure, and then did the same exact thing I did here. Broken into prior and conditional model. Right, cool. I'm assuming there are no questions. I'll stop.
All right. Jay, you want to get that?
Yeah. Yeah, this was a bit more clear. Just a minute. Is the slide visible? Okay. So like you can like encoder part is basically in a way nothing like in a way simpler way I can think of it as a variational approximation like for the where we are basically mapping from a approximated distribution Q and basically generating sampling the latent vector in a way Z and basically then feeding that Z vector through a neural network architecture in a way that is basically which learns the model parameter theta in a way. So to get the actual true posterior in a way like that we tend to be, like find out. So this is kind of a breakup of the variational inference model in terms of probabilistic encoder decoder architecture. But like, what is the problem in this thing? Like, so here can we do like gradient descent or backpropagation basically here in this case? So the thing is like for training purpose, we cannot perform like the gradient descent in this case, like the backpropagation here, because like this stochastic process of like sampling the data basically is a bottleneck in a way. So like it is okay to have a stochastic process samples if they are at the input levels, but not in the intermediate level layers of the neural network. I can say because like we want our functions to be continuous and differentiable here, and this uh, stochasticity like doesn't hold because like the continuous yeah, so the continuous and differentiability criteria doesn't hold here for this because of the stochasticity. So like they come up with some they have came with some reparametrization trick. So what is that reparametrization trick basically, which like in a way makes the stochastic process like in a way differentiable? So here in a way they introduce some differentiable transformation mapping, so which is nothing but some operations here, vector operations that makes the function continuous, and we switch the stochastic process for sampling the noise from the normal distribution of mean zero and unit variance, And this you can think of that this is the stochastic sampling basically of noise as input here. So when we are doing the back propagation, this doesn't affect like our neural network. So this is the reason like of free parameterization which works, and we are able to perform the gradient descent on this particular network architecture, where we learn the model parameters theta for the decoder and model parameters phi for the encoder part. So now, like basically, we know that the z in this case, sorry, yeah, for z, you can think of it as like a mu plus sigma times this epsilon noise in a way. So yeah, this is a g itself is a some transfer. It's a particularly uh, z is basically in a way sampled from a normal distribution where mu z and sigma z are the parameters in a way. So yeah. So now we know that this is basically we apply some differentiable transformations basically in order to make the stochastic process work for differentiability. So here we take the Monte Carlo estimates of the expectation of your function f of z with respect to like the variational approximation here of the latent variable z conditional on x given the distribution phi. So in this case, we take the expectation here, and like by Monte Carlo estimate, we basically do like the it is one upon L, like kind of a in a way averaging basically. So at the end, we think of it as like it will converge basically. So now for this particular cases, like uh, there might be two possibilities in a way. So one where the KL divergence might be tractable, and the other part is where KL divergence is not uh, is intractable, that is difficult to compute like this in a way. So like this particular condition like that we saw in the equation. So for this particular condition here, the KL divergence becomes intractable. So based on that, like they use Monte Carlo estimate for applying this, or you can think of it as a EM algorithm like what Akash also showed right now in a way. And this part is like split into KL divergence plus the expectation of log marginal. So this basically we apply here the by the law of expectation in a way, so here it will convert like so yeah, based on that, like using Monte Carlo estimate. So now like the training parameter training basically in terms of the algorithm algorithm is as follows. So here we have like particularly model parameters phi and theta, where we basically jointly learn basically this parameters. So phi is like the parameters basically for the approximate variational approximate distribution that we make for like sampling the latent variable z, and theta is the approximation for basically in a way model parameters for the true posterior distribution that we're intending to get basically given this some random uh, latent variable z. Like so here we repeat till convergence in a way. So here we basically first of all take a mini match of m data points in a way, and then basically also sample the noise basically here, which is like from a mean zero and unit variance, and then we basically perform this is a loss function that we had seen before like here. So in this case we basically do gradient descent on this variation lower bound in a way, and we get the parameters g of phi and g of theta, and we update using the weighted learning in a way. So yeah. So now coming back to the inference part here. So inference part you can think of it as like a decoder structure on the here. So where we have some like latent variable z from the approximate distribution in a way. So which basically generates the data that is similar to the true posterior that we had kind of here. So you can think of z as this particular part plus this in a way. Like sorry, inference part. So what are the applications of this VAs like right now we have seen so far? So like the VAs can be used for like images and videos. So where we basically denoise like the images in painting super resolutions and many more applications such as like that. So you can think of this as also as a data compression step in a way, like we take the actual image, compress it, and basically represent using some latent variable like space of smaller dimension, and then basically again we can basically protect it to the actual representation, like which is closer to the, we can predict to the higher dimensional representation that is closer to the true this representation in a way. And it also used in speech enhancement and audio related activities as well. Like, so you can think of this as an example of the variational uh, inference model on, sorry, variational VAs on the images, face images, and this is on MNIST. So in this case, we have the one of the reason also for like why VA, like if you compare VAs and GANs, so GANs are like generating bit more sharper images, and VAs are bit generating bit more like the plain VAs generate bit more blurry images like that way. So the reason in this case is simple in a way. So that is like basically uh, like we are generating data in a way like taking that uh, you can think of it as, so like given some data here, so we are basically generating the data that is similar to the closer representation but not the actual representation in a way. So there might be value like difference in the pixel values of the uh, pixel values which might lead to blurriness in the image here. Yeah, and this is a demo like which I found. So like from the actual author, so it shows a MNIST data set where they have basically uh, represented in terms of the 12 latent, yeah, so latent variable in terms of 12 dimensions like that way. So where you make all these 12 dimensions and like get the different representations of the observed value x. So yeah, I think yeah, this is it. Like any doubts or something? Hello.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the others to wrap up any questions you might have, so
Yeah.
that I can then go into some comments and feedback on the presentation style.
Yeah, I'm sorry for like the confusing derivation. Like this was first time, so
Completely fine. This- I would not be doing this at your age, even remotely. Even doing this today for me might be challenging. So no worries.
yeah. Like but terms of like the terminologies and not like how it is supposed to be called. So that was like first for me, like first time as well. So yeah.
Yeah, this was an excellent first presentation for the group, and like it set a good benchmark for the rest of them. But let's pause for questions first, like about anything that was unclear. In
And yeah,
okay, seeing none, and partly because like we've covered most of this stuff in Akash's lectures in detail already, so naturally
yeah,
there might not be a lot of.
yeah.
So before we jump into feedback, I should caveat this with the fact that I am not an expert on presentation style or like the math of various autoencoders, the stuff that is going on here, and like what I know is just what I have seen and what I have heard, and some group meetings that I have presented at, and the feedback I've got from there. So that is what is my motivation for giving you this feedback. Secondly, it's for the benefit of like the next few meetings, and particularly because this is being recorded, so there are others who will present in the coming weeks who will be able to have access to this recording to figure out their style. That is why I'm trying to offer some comments. The first thing I will say is this is okay because everyone knew the math here, but if it is completely new math, you should be going at roughly three-fourth or even half the speed you were going at for the math slides. It is hard. If you go to the slide, there was, I think, slide, I forgot the slide number, but if you flip up, I can probably point you to it. There was a
Which one?
slide with
This
all of
one?
the math, the point at which Akash paused you. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Minimizing
This
tail
one.
divergence and maximizing low bound. So this slide has a lot of moving pieces, and you either want to like build it out line by line, or you want some sort of highlighting, or you want to move your cursor here and there, point out exactly what you're talking about. Don't just give the audience a slide and then talk about things on the slide without any interaction. That's my
Yeah,
point.
okay.
Because even though we all know the maths that is going on here, uh, it, it's hard to follow when you see a lot of math on a slide, at least for me. So again, this is like just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, building it out is not hard. Like just duplicate the slide and delete a line each time. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what I mean by building it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would I appreciate that you labeled what these terms are. So that's nice. And I liked the way you presented in the sense that you stopped and paused and explained most of the things you were doing before jumping into it. So that is good. At the same time, like when you're talking about things, be more precise. And I guess that's a function of confidence. And even I can't say I have as much confidence to talk about math and say, okay, this is exactly this and that is exactly that. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, that's my goal as well, to be more mathematically precise and confident in what I say. You already started your presentation by saying, look, the math I say might be wrong. So there is no harm in being confident after that.
Okay. Yeah.
So don't like, this is something like a neural network. No, it is a neural network. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no something like a neural network. Your
Mhm.
encoder is a neural network. Your decoder has a
Yeah.
neural architecture. So yeah, it just increases the audience's confidence in what you're saying. That's all.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
Like it was like for first time for me as well. Like so, yeah, I was also a bit tense about like the notations and everything like that way. So yeah,
no, no, no.
okay, like
This is, yeah. Again, like I said, this is from the perspective of learning from it, and even
yeah, yeah,
whenever
yeah,
I watch my
definitely.
lecture recordings, I'm like, I say a lot, like a crazy amount of pauses and and whatever. So it's definitely something I need to work on. But
Yeah,
yeah, so review the presentation after, and I'm sure you'll find 5 things you want to change yourself. Okay, now some
yeah, definitely.
mathematical stuff. Akash already pointed out the difference between log prior and log marginal likelihood. So
Yeah, yeah,
what you were talking about, px or p theta, p sub theta of x. There are
yeah,
different ways of writing the notation. Some people write px given theta. Some people write p sub theta of x. And so then when you say, okay, this is the marginal likelihood of the data, the question is then, wait, marginal, why is the marginal likelihood there with a conditional sign inside the brackets? And so it really depends on your notation. And as you use it more, you'll get more familiar with, okay, what is the log joint? What is the log marginal? What is the prior? What is the posterior? One thing you should note though is we never calculate the prior. The prior is always what we assume.
yeah.
You start with a prior, like it is in the name of
Okay.
the term. So you start with something and then you correct your beliefs because you are some degree of
Mhm.
wrong. You're never going to have
Yeah.
the perfect prior. That is the assumption in Bayesian statistics that,
MAP.
yeah, MAP, but like in Bayesian statistics in general, like you're going to find some posterior that is an update of over your prior.
Yeah.
And
Based
how
on
is that
evidence.
update going to come about? Well, by conditioning on the data that you see.
Mhm.
The think about, like, things are much simpler than the terminology lets you believe most of the time. Like all of these fancy
Yeah.
divergences and fancy inequalities, they're telling you really simple things, and at some point it will click and you'll be like, wait, why do they have such names for it? And well, that's just math.
Mhm.
Due credit to the creators of the math. But yeah, okay. I mentioned don't just read out the math. It is hard to follow if you do that and such shows the equations line by line. That's fine.
Yeah.
I've also made like notes, so you'll have these for reference. So don't worry about them. Like I put them on the Notion. Okay.
Okay.
We never calculate the prior. I
Okay.
talked about that. The prior encodes are inductive biases about a data generating process. Um, just you'll come across this terminology a lot. That's why I'm bringing it up here. Like an inductive bias is your
Okay.
understanding of a problem through some past experiences and not through the current data at hand. I think.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, someone. When you go back to the VA diagram, the yellow and green uh, encoder decoder, I think the next slide.
This one or the other?
Yeah, this one is fine. You said the reason we use a Gaussian is because of this CDF is tractable. Is the CDF of a Gaussian distribution tractable?
Inverse side, inverse, inverse of CDF, like this it exists.
If the CDF is not tractable, would its inverse be tractable?
So like the reason we use Gaussian was like the main reason is tractability, right? So we tend to use like distributions that we know and basically that are like calculatable in a way, like so we know most of the big things.
So the Gaussian distribution has some nice properties, but a tractable CDF I do not believe is one of them, because if you basically integrate the Gaussian PDF, you will not find a closed form solution for it. So the you want to mention tractability 2 slides later when you get to reparameterization, because the Gaussian distribution has certain properties that allows you to sample nicely from it, because you can transform your uniform random variable into a Gaussian random variable easily, and then you can get into whatever that procedure is, but it is definitely not because the Gaussian has a tractable CDF.
Okay.
One like a nice property of multivariate Gaussians is that I don't know if I want to get into. I will. So there is a Stack Exchange link. I guess I can just point you to that because they discuss this
Okay.
in detail.
Okay.
But go through that and um, post a summary on the channel. Sorry about that. Post a summary later. Give me one second. Yeah, sorry about that. So that then differentiable transformation G. The slide about that. I think 1 or 2 slides later.
This one or like the calculation space.
That was the title, differentiable transform G.
This one.
Yeah. On that slide, you mentioned correctly that there is some convergence, but like, do you know what that convergence means? Like, what is converging here when you talk about Monte Carlo estimates? I think we lost you. Oh boy. Okay. You might have to reconnect again. Yep. Or does anyone else have comments on the style and the pace, or any feedback about the presentation? Please feel free to add that here. I'm asking mainly because we're recording this, so like it would be nice to have this as like a, here are some criteria you should ideally try
Can
to.
you repeat? Like I got dropped off. Like due
No, no,
to
I was just generally, it was not relevant nor important for you right now.
okay.
So all I was saying was that the Monte Carlo estimates converge to the estimates give you converge to the true expected value. And you
Okay.
said converge, so I'm assuming you knew what you meant, but it's always nice
Yeah.
to clarify the full
Okay.
statement. Like these
Yeah,
estimates.
like actually it converges to the true expectation, like basically by like taking sort of in a way thousands of iterations, or let's say for example like that way. So yeah,
Hmm?
but
Right.
yeah.
That was a minor point. And lastly, just like in general, phi are the parameters of the variational distribution
Yeah.
setup. The variational distribution is the prior that we place on Z.
Hmm.
This describes the distribution of Z. We want to update this distribution by conditioning it on the data X that we have seen, such that we can match the data generating process, the distribution of the data. I don't know if it's right
Like
to say the data generating process P or the distribution of the data P. But
in a way, hidden like data generating process also, like because we want to learn the model parameters theta as well, like correct.
Mhm, mhm,
And again, like it's just in a way kind of a let's say we are basically assuming some prior distribution, like basically according to us that will like basically be closer to like the z condition x, the in a way distribution like of the latent variable z. So like based on that, if you think of it as a like we have some x in a way like observed variable distribution right now, we are mapping it to like the true basically distribution of z condition on x posterior of that, and
mhm,
we are assuming it basically approximately equal to some like distribution phi that is like in a way Gaussian or like based on some way basically let's say zero mean or like unit variance, and we want that to be approximate in a way so like such that the if we try to map like from z of like the like z tilde like that is a Gaussian distribution that we had assumed,
mhm.
like which generates the data to be as closer to the true posterior of like the
Yeah.
like that is a x in a way,
Uh,
maybe like yeah.
so Px and Q theta of X,
Uh,
uh,
yeah, sorry,
Q phi really, but like,
Q5
yeah, fair enough.
means like
Yeah.
in sort of sampling part, like we are taking like based on our prior knowledge, like this distribution would be like closely approximating like the data generating process in a way, like the sampling like the z which generates data. So then encoder part, we are like basically kind of taking the like the observed value like the input data x, based on that input data like basically through the variational approximation like that we are performing for like the uh, over the model parameters phi, like in the encoder part we are basically getting some the distribution like in a way, correct, and based on that mapping in a way we are trying to see that mapping like of the actual distribution that we are obtaining, we
Mhm.
want that distribution to be close to the Gaussian in a way like that we had priorly assumed, and that kind of in a way mapping
Yep.
leads to again like the decoder part generating the x, like
I want you to stop saying in a way and be confident on what you're asking me. If it's wrong, it's wrong. I don't care. You don't care.
no like means that is only like in a way the higher intuition
Not
you
in a
can
way.
say like
That is it.
yeah, that
That
is
is
the higher
exactly it.
like the
You're right. That
only
is exactly it. Like there is no cool. So I
like
have to stop saying and you have to stop saying in a way.
yeah like basically the point is I'm being bit like you know currently afraid of like getting the terminals long, like basically I don't want to
This is fine and it
pass
will take a
mislead,
while and I will keep
yeah.
correcting you in a way. That's fine for me.
Yeah, like kind of like basically it's a, like kind of in a fear like I don't want to mislead someone like and like present
I
some wrong
agree
information.
completely. And like this entire reading group was an exercise for me to convince myself that I'm not misleading people in statistics. So yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer, but you have to start
uh,
somewhere.
yeah, like it will come with experience. It will like definitely like we
I hope so. I don't have any experience to say it will, but I hope so.
yeah, like basically your feedback also like you get feedback, so like the feedback loop like will definitely help like to improve based on like for
Yep.
the next presentation as well. Like, so
Cool.